All right, go ahead. Let's do it.
$100?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Chris Webb, is he online?
Hopefully not.
Is he in the office
Cool.
in Porterville?
That doesn't count.
No, he's not here.
No,
Roby
Oh,
is.
not here.
not here. Oh, Chris Webb.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. Okay, next week it's $120. Chris again. Yes, Jared. It was Chris again, but he wasn't there, so he didn't win.
There you go.
Did we read the chat already, or was that the?
Yeah.
What?
There was a little chat.
I can't, how do I get to the
I
chat?
think this is where the equals, that's why, okay.
Oh,
You're. None. Okay. Like my husband. Yes, and all the logos.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, because I told that my logo.
Okay, so are we, I can't tell, are we are we?
Roby, can you confirm, are you able to see Sarah, and are you able to see the mold awareness in real estate?
Yes.
Yes, I could see both.
Okay.
You can see
perfect.
both. Okay, so this morning we have a very special guest from K Hart, right?
Yep.
Mold. And they're going to speak to us about mold awareness in real estate. So they've got a presentation we'll go through, and if we can maybe save our questions until the end. And so Crystal, welcome, and we'll let you guys take it over.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Crystal. I'm the founder of K Hart Environmental. This is
Morning, I'm Jesus Valenzuela. I work with Alliance Environmental. We pretty much are the people that can help you with mold.
removing the mold.
Not getting mold.
Not getting mold, removing the mold. Okay, so we're gonna go through the PowerPoint. Do you want to do the arrows?
The space bar.
Press right here.
Okay. What's this? Which one?
Or just click on the image, the second one down at the bottom. And then that will probably trigger it to then start this.
There we go. Okay, so mold is a symptom, not the problem. So mold growth indicates the presence of underlying moisture issues. Common sources include plumbing leaks, roof leaks, humidity, condensation. Removing mold without fixing the moisture source often leads to regrowth. Identifying and correcting the cause of moisture is essential for long-term resolution, and effective moisture management is the most important step for mold prevention. So no moisture, no mold.
Yep. So water intrusion should never be ignored, even if it's like tiny leak under the sink, and we'll tell you later why. So even minor water intrusion can lead to significant property damage over time, like behind cabinets. And moisture can be trapped within building materials, creating conditions conducive to the mold growth. Cabinets, showers, behind appliances, that's usually what we find it. Early detection can can minimize the restoration and the cost. Like the sooner you find it, the less money you're going to spend for sure. Common sources include roof leaks, plumbing failures, window leaks, and drainage. Prompt corrective action protects both property value and the occupant health. You don't want any mold when you have a tenant. Really, really bad. Small leaks today can become a major problem tomorrow.
So musty odors may indicate mold. That's a very good indication that there may be a reservoir hiding. Persistent musty odor is often one of the first indicators of hidden moisture, mold growth. Mold may be concealed behind walls, beneath flooring, inside cabinets, attics, and crawl spaces. The absence of visible mold does not necessarily mean a property is free from microbial growth. Investigating unexplained odors early can identify issues before they worsen, and professional assessment can help determine whether moisture or mold is present and identify potential sources.
You can smell it, it's worth investigating.
Yeah, if you can smell it, worth investigating for sure.
Okay. I believe that one is Oh, this one. This is my favorite one. A fresh coat of paint does not solve the mold problem. Hi, guys. So tell your handyman, hey man, I know that you're a great painter, but not on this one. Okay, so
The roots are embedded still, so it will surface back.
it will show later. After 6 months, hey, you sold me a house. What the hell, Painting over water stains or mold growth does not address the underlying moisture issue. Hidden moisture can continue to damage building materials and promote mold growth. Cosmetic repairs may temporarily conceal signs of damage, but problems often return. And proper correction requires identifying and repairing the moisture source. We need to find the leak, fix it, then you can do the rest. Lasting solutions focus on moisture control, remediation when necessary, and verification of repairs. Covering the evidence does not eliminate the cause. But that's a good one because there's a lot of houses that will just go crazy with the painting. And then later you get the call, hey, there's this stain in my bathroom. What's going on? So
Even
address it before the painting.
kills paint,
Yes.
same thing. Okay, next slide. Bathrooms, kitchen, attics, and crawl spaces are high-risk areas. These areas are commonly exposed to elevated moisture levels and humidity. Plumbing leaks, condensation, poor ventilation, and roof leaks frequently contribute to moisture accumulation. Hidden moisture can present undetected, creating conditions favorable for mold growth. Routine inspections and maintenance can help identify issues before significant damage occurs. Special attention should be given to these high-risk areas during property evaluations and turnovers. So these areas that are listed are typically where moisture sources begin.
Next one. So mold can impact property value and marketability. So visible mold or unresolved moisture issues can discourage protected buyers or tenants. Who here has lost a job or a transaction when there's mold? Anybody?
Connie.
Connie?
Everybody look at Connie.
Okay, yeah. So environmental concerns may delay transactions, financing or occupancy. Like I mentioned, I don't know if everybody was here, but I did inspected a house. I'm just gonna take a little bit of time here. I did inspected a house that it was an investing home, so it wasn't like in the best condition, right? So everything was going great until the home inspector, the lender got hold of the home inspector report. The home inspector mentioned that there was some mold, and the lender was trying to, you know what, I'm not gonna give you the money. So this realtor, he's a friend of mine, so he called me. He's like, Jesus, I have a problem here. So all we did is we cleaned it up the best we could, took photos, and then the deal was closed. So I was asking you guys if you guys ever had something like that happen and you want to address the mold right away. So you don't lose, your deal or the customer. So proper documentation of inspections, remediation, and repairs helps build buyer confidence. You want to have some information with you. If you need something testing, here's the lady right here to help you out. Addressing moisture issues early helps protect property value and supports a smooth transaction. All of you guys have my phone number in there. When we do these kind of presentations, when you guys call me or Crystal or Cameron, if you think there's something wrong with the property, when I go and take a look at it, I typically don't charge you for just taking a look really quick. If you need testing and documentation, that's a different story. But that way, if you, for some reason, your client points something out, you call me right away, and I try to be there. I take my moisture meters, my thermal camera, and then we can, see what's wrong and, get your client more confident that, okay, this is something else. This is not a leak, or it could be previous damage or whatnot. So healthy properties are more marketable, more valuable, and more easier to sell.
Next slide. All right, can't think of that one right now.
Prevention.
Prevention, thank you, is less expensive than remediation. So routine inspections, proactive maintenance help identify moisture issues before mold develops. Mold is a consequential damage, so the first water intrusion is the first cause of damage. Properly repairing leaks and water intrusion can prevent costly structural damage. Preventative maintenance reduces the likelihood of extensive remediation and property disruption. Moisture management protects property value, occupant health, and long-term building performance. Investigating in prevention, can't think of that word today can significantly reduce future repairs, costs, and liability.
So the cost of prevention is almost always less than the cost of the remediation. So sometimes it's worth doing a little bit of investigating, pre-testing, or a little bit of, addressing the water damage, couple of fans, dehumidifiers, whatnot. Don't let it sit, even if it's tiny. So when in doubt, consult a qualified environmental professional. So early consultation can help identify moisture and mold concerns before they become a larger problem. And independent assessment provides objective findings based off industry standards and professional judgment. You just don't want, oh yeah, there's mold. Okay, what kind of mold? Environmental professionals can help determine the extent of the moisture intrusion, recommend appropriate testing and warranted, and identify contributing conditions. Accurate documentation supports informed decisions for buyers, sellers, property managers, and remediation contractors. So one of the most important documents that you can have is a clearance test. We always do the remediation, but we always have Crystal go after us, do the testing, and have paperwork. Like if I get sued by the tenant or the homeowner or the insurance, I have papers saying Jesus and Cameron, they did work in this bathroom, and this is how it was before, and this is what they were after. This is the clearance that everything was clean on day whatever, and then you're off the hook. Everything else is, is something separate. Partnering with qualified professionals help reduce uncertainty, protect your property value, and minimize potential liability. So when questions arise, let the science guide the solutions.
Okay.
I think that's the last one.
Yeah, and then we have the reports. So from inspections to remediation, what to expect. So, what we're about to show you is just one of our recent real estate transactions. When I went out there, did the initial inspection. They had a home inspector come out, called out certain areas. I came in and verified that it was mold, determined the type, extent of contamination, and then he was called out he did an estimate and then he performed the remediation. So we're about to show you. So if you just want to go through, we don't have to.
Click it.
Click it.
Space.
Oh, so go back. So I guess we scroll.
It's not gonna open here.
Technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry about that.
Is it like a PDF?
Yeah.
It was
So we were able to click on it and then it opened up PDF. We don't have it on the screen.
Maybe if we exit a slideshow view, might be able to.
Do you have it saved up? Is it on this?
You want to send it on your
Yeah.
computer? Okay, give us just 2 minutes and then I'll.
Get out of it now.
So,
any questions in the meantime?
yeah, I'm gonna say to just talk on that topic. So in typical, your client wants to buy a home. So depending on who's doing, inspections, typical, the buyer has their home inspector come out, the home inspector says this and that. Some home inspectors aren't going to call it out for what it is. They'll say it's organic growth. So that's where someone like myself would come out and I can say this is mold growth. So I just can't tell you the type of mold unless I'm actually testing the surface to discover what type of species that is. So there are toxigenic mold species versus non-toxigenic mold species, which is what some people have extreme sensitivities to. So that some people know what type of mold they don't want, and they will want to know what's on that surface.
But they've all got to be treated, right?
It all has to be treated or remediated. Yes. So some people will skip me if there's mold that's visual and everybody is in agreement that it's mold growth and they don't need to do the ambient air testing or the surface testing. Then someone like Alliance can come out and remediate and treat. And then the most valuable report I can offer is the verification. So basically that's certifying that the current environmental conditions aren't supporting mold to grow, and that in the area that they did remediation, there is no more mold growth, in simple terms. That's what the verification is for.
You wanna talk about the 10 square feet rule?
In the other states. So I like to explain it all comes down to comfort levels. So
In
there's
case they hear it from their plumbers, their contractors, their handymans, cause like you said,
yes,
people
so
use it to their advantage.
in the state of California, there's no regulations in regards to mold growth. We're a drier state, so they just went. I like to explain it that because it's a consequential damage, what is the source that's supporting mold to grow in the dry state of California? So in other states like Texas, New York, Florida, New Jersey, they have mold regulations. Their mold regulations don't come into play unless you visually see 10 square feet of mold growth. That's a lot of mold growth. That's when regulations and certain things have to be implemented because of the amount of surface growth. We don't really have that here. So depending on your customers and their comfort levels, that's where necessary data, remediation and treatment.
But it does go around our industry a lot where people bring
Yeah, I was
up
gonna
the,
say.
hey, well, there's less than 10 square feet, we can cut it out, we don't have to set containment, we don't have to do air scrubbers. You don't have to take the proper steps.
You still gotta be trained and do it properly, you know,
Yes.
but you're gonna hear it in this industry, oh, it's less than 10 square feet, let's use it, you know. Yeah.
And I'd like to touch on that because sometimes there'll be a little bit of mold on the base, but once they start cutting into things, that's when they see the amount of mold behind a wall, behind a cabinetry. Not all testing is gonna detect what things are hiding behind.
What
if it's
conditions
contained.
are conducive to mold? I mean, moisture, obviously.
Moisture and organic
I mean, what
material.
about temperature? What about darkness and light? Does that have anything to do with it?
Humidity, so humidity levels between 40 and 60% can support.
So like showers?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, so, but you're not gonna have,
Bathrooms without the fan,
yeah,
Mm.
ventilation, I'm,
bathrooms without windows, those have more of the time.
Oh, yeah, they got that rule on the East Coast. There's so much humidity.
Yeah,
that's so much-
and on the East Coast, they even do like a sealed attic space, so they're completely controlling the environment on all different aspects. Here, we're a dry state, so our attics aren't sealed, they're vent,
No.
so, and industry standard is based on IICRC, it's 2 feet past visual, so that's how you properly remediate mold growth based on when it's growing.
You went over your report.
So this is just a
I'll go.
okay, an example of a initial report. So again, the buyer had a home inspector come out. The home inspector called out certain areas of discoloration. And I went out there. I basically explained to the buyer all their options up front. So if you can test the whole house, it's going to be pretty costly. So how I explain it is it's the start of the investigation. It makes everybody's life easier when we see it. I'm going to try to get to the photos. This is just all the,
How much does it cost to test a whole house ballpark?
so but depending on the square footage, you're going to look into like 2,500 minimal. That's like on a 2,000 square foot home, but that's just how much data would need to be collected to try to create a more comprehensive assessment. Knowing the history of the property is going to come into value. So if there's been any insurance claims, any previous water intrusion events, what areas, knowing those areas, being transparent with the potential buyer that there was a water intrusion event in the kitchen. This is what it looks like now. You can always have me come out and investigate it. I'm going to look for anything that can contribute to mold growth or that is mold growth. Per industry standard, I do an air test to validate what I can't see. If that comes back normal, then I can't really tell anybody much more than that unless we're going to do invasive type of investigation. Most people don't do that route during the transaction. So, these are some surface samples. There was a little bit of mold growth by the register vent. That came non-toxigenic. There was some water damage in another bathroom. These photos don't really show the best on the screen, but basically behind the door trim, you could see the growth behind there and you can see the water damage. So those were to identify the type of species because it was black and they cared about knowing the type.
So in this particular job, we work in 2 bathrooms and the living room area, I believe, right?
The north side
North
of the
side.
property, it was surrounded by a lot of moisture. They had a pool, they had a natural lagoon type of
This is what we use to
Listen.
check the moisture on the air.
humidity. The humidity.
Humidity, yes.
Yeah. So the air testing was just to validate what the concentration was in that moment of time, because I could visually see the mold on the surface, but what's the concentration for the airborne? That allows the contractor to know how to set up their chambers and how many air scrubbers are needed to scrub the air. So those are just certain mold species type that are common, but the types that we typically work for. I like to break down the size of the project just to give a kind of a price cost.
I
But-
think the job was $2,500 for remediation, but it was a very minor job.
Because they went with treatment on some of the areas. They
Yes.
chose treatment.
Oh, that's a good thing to say, to mention, because she did the testing and the mold in one of the bathrooms wasn't toxic. Then we were able to use the treatment, meaning that I didn't have to remove drywall, I didn't have to put base, you didn't have to do anything. All I had to do is just wipe it because it was very minimal, it wasn't toxic. In the other bathroom, the report showed that it was toxic mold. So I had to remove the drywall, I had to remove the baseboards, we had to remove all of the door trim, and it was more work, which is gonna be more cost to repair it, more cost to remediate it. If, correct me if I'm wrong, but if both bathrooms didn't have toxic mold, then we could have done just treatment.
Treatment of it, yeah.
And then you don't have to do any repairs, right? Just cleaning it, cleaning the air.
I explain to the client their options so that they understand the difference between treatment and the difference between remediation. And so they come in and can give the estimate for both, but understanding what position you're left in.
So
Like,
you don't have
better-
to demo all the time, but 9 or 10 times, if you wanna do it correctly, yes, that bathroom was like an exception out of 10 jobs.
Did you say it was in the living room too?
It was all along, it was a common theme along the windows, which finding mold along the windows is typically a housekeeping issue unless there's a loss of integrity for the structural part of the window, the seals, or it has some other way of having a water intrusion, but it's commonly a housekeeping thing. In this case, because they had a lot of moisture on the north side of their property, it was more humid. So humidity condensation goes to the coldest thing in the room, which is the windows. If you have dust lying around, you have mold spores lying around and mold's just hanging out waiting to grow. So
Dust is what you're speaking about. when
Yeah.
you say housekeeping.
yes. So if you have dust lying around, you have mold spores lying around. Doesn't mean that the environment is supporting mold to grow.
And you have a house, I'm hearing this too, that's like built so, like, where you can't breathe.
Sealed.
Yeah,
Is that also an issue?
Yes.
they call it like a sick home.
Yeah.
Just
It's-
completely sealed.
And what the transition in is like when you have an older home and then you're trying to keep up with the new trends. Some people aren't taking into the factor that this house was breathing. It was more ventilated, and now you're changing this. It's going to change the environmental conditions. But yes, it's common to find that. I forgot what there is, but there's a test to determine the actual ventilation of a home. I can look at
I like to talk about this. You guys see these pictures right here? So this photo right here is like
behind the door.
behind here, it was full of like black mold in here. So that's why a lot of times you're like, oh yeah, everything looks okay, you know, and then you can smell the mold, and sometimes you had to, you gotta look everywhere, you know.
And I'm gonna talk on this too, because you'll notice that there's a shower here, okay? But I didn't see any mold growth in the shower or around it. It was only identified around this door area. There was moisture staining up there, and it traveled downwards. So this is a whole, if the client was concerned about what's happening behind the shower, for example, there's no way for myself, I don't have x-ray vision. So we can't tell you if there's mold growing behind that shower unless we physically open up a wall behind a shower to inspect. I'm just giving perspective of how somebody can identify.
So my job is, when I'm doing this work,
There was the question.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, wouldn't you use like your moisture reader in that sense, like if you saw it above the door, then you would check the moisture reader to kind of see if there was
If the environment.
water behind that wall.
So when I was there in that moment of time, the conditions did not support mold to grow, but mold was visual.
Don't you think that tile being so close to that molding is a problem? Like if there's a little lip on that tile above the shower and moisture goes there, and then it could go over right above that door.
So what we did is, the first thing, very good
Yes,
question.
yes,
Because
yeah.
I was when I saw this photo, and I have a shower right next to it, like what's gonna happen to that shower. So my job is to do a little bit more investigating. So what we do is we're gonna pull this stream first.
Yeah.
But luckily, the mold was right here only. All this was clean.
Ah,
So then we know that whatever was leaking, this is an exterior door. This leads to the outside.
And they
So-
had no awning, so it was more of a weather
Yeah.
thing is what we were.
Yeah, so we think on this one, I think it was the door.
Weather
right?
source, yeah.
The door. Yeah.
That allowed the moisture to enter and then support the
So
column.
we were able to save the shower because we didn't find any moisture, and basically we didn't see any mold growth on this section right here. So we knew that it was okay.
And he opened up the ceiling too.
Yes.
So even though there wasn't any mold growth up on that particular area, while doing the remediation, he also identified and opened that up, even though there wasn't any mold growth on the surface.
Because there was just a little bit of mold in here. So I wanted to be 2 feet, but I wanted to find out, okay, is it the door? Is it a roof leak? So we opened this up a little bit, and then they find out that it was they just need a new door. Yep.
There's a little, I wish I would have had a photo of the exterior to give you perspective.
I think we do have exterior.
Oh, yes.
Is that the door right
Okay,
here?
yes.
This one,
So
right?
this
Yeah.
was the door that the moisture, so if there was a heavy rain, okay, and the wind was hitting up against that, then it could have been a localized one-time situation event. And so not everybody's inspecting their homes, there wasn't any mold in that area, so basically that's what the mold, it was just a weather situation that would support the mold exactly behind the door frame only. So.
And these are the windows that we clean.
Yeah, the north side. So they have a pool and then it's out in the country and it has more of a natural swamp land.
And this is the other bathroom, right? Or is it the same?
No, that's the right above the door. Yeah.
yeah.
This is the other bathroom.
Yes. So this was the register bed that had a little bit of mold growth on there. It wasn't a toxigenic species. There was some mold growth in the ducting. This was all expressed to the buyers and they still move forward with treatment.
Yeah, so we pretty much use antimicrobial, we wipe everything, we use HEPA vacuum, and then we just dry it properly, and then that was it. There was nothing to do. I think they did a little bit of touch up on the paint, but that was it.
And
They
it
didn't
is
have, they didn't have
sealant.
to remove the drywall or the insulation, and then you gotta hire someone to do texture and all of that.
But the
stuff.
buyer is aware, so if they ever see any, they treated that area. So technically they would monitor that area and apply treatment as needed or further remediation if they
Does
could.
the buyer have their ducting tested?
Yeah.
There's test specifically their ducting. No, no.
Be able to see.
Knowing the history of the property is going to be first and foremost the importance, because if there's ever been any claims, what type of claims? For example, I have had sellers, they have like a whole binder of the history of the, I know it's not realistic on everybody's transaction, but just they had every event was documented, and so they knew that there was a whole water intrusion before, and it was just kind of more transparent to feel comfortable with what they're purchasing. I think every time we've done jobs together, people are confident of because we're transparent with all their options so that they can make the best decision for themselves. Everything comes down to a cost. Obviously the best is going to be remediation because you're guaranteeing to get to the root of the mold, so you wouldn't have to monitor it. Technically only mold will grow unless there's a whole new moisture issue. But preventative maintenance is very crucial when it comes to the health of a property and preventing mold to grow. So
If you don't do complete remediation and have to come back to monitor, how often does that happen? That long time?
So I would say at least it's not required again. So, but I would say at least an annual basis. So whenever the repair was done, the treatment was done, what does it look like a year later from there? Because we have different conditions that support it. And so if you want to go to your remediation,
How do you clean the ductwork inside that?
Everyone,
well, let me give my little feedback on duct cleaning when it comes to mold. So that picture did have mold growth there. I could visually see it. We saved a test. We didn't swab the actual ducting. We swabbed right next to the ducting. But it would be a treatment. Technically, because of how ducting is made, the best way, if it's really bad, then you should just remove the ducting.
this is more cost effective.
Yes, yes. Duct cleaning is more effective when you are doing a routine duct cleaning. So just like you service your HVAC unit, service your ducts, and then you shouldn't have any buildup.
So
Because
when
if
it
you
gets clean though, there's like a negative air that hooks to the return. And puts the whole system under negative pressure, and you have brushes that are on what we call whips. So it's like a long string and it's got brushes on it, and a drill spins it, and you run it through the lines, knock all the dust off, and then you can do wet treatments as well with topical treatments. The thing is, as Crystal was explaining, the older ducts are like rigid lines, they're real hard, they're sturdy, so you can really brush them and really scrub them. The newer lines, the soft lines, you have different whips, different brushes that are softer, but you can't be as aggressive because it'll rip the duct line open. So the newer lines are a lot harder to clean in these situations.
So keeping up on the ducts and the maintenance, yeah. Preventative is really where we're heading as a state as a whole. Are you gonna get your?
I'm trying to find.
I'm gonna go back to my site map just to give you guys to understand, because I know how much would it cost to test a whole house, right? So this is pretty much it's not drawn to sketch, but it's the layout of the home. So I identify exactly where I took samples during my inspection. Again, this is piggyback off the concern of the home inspector's report. And so I'm verifying, also inspecting the property myself. And so this just gives a map of where that testing was actually done. So if somebody says, well, what about the game room? No testing was done there. I didn't see anything, but there was no air test to validate what I can't see. That's where testing a whole house, one may want to do that. Typically it's not common in a real estate transaction. I will tell you that, unless somebody has a checkbook and they're willing to spend, then that's it. It will be worth it to them. They already have experience in the mold world, typically is what those customers will do. But in order to verify a whole property, you'd have to do a lot of testing in each room.
If you have a seller though, that there had been a previous problem with mold, it might be worth it for them to have the test done to show there's nothing, so there's no pre-existing condition.
Yes.
right?
Yes, and I've
Or a
worked.
seller.
Yes.
Getting a buyer to do that is gonna
Yes.
be tough.
Yes.
That's not gonna help you.
And it's all about data. So, and I worked with buyers and sellers. So a seller putting their property on the market, they already knew they had a insurance claim. And the potential buyer was aware of that. So then they got me involved, and I basically documented what I saw in the area that was, we were aware that there was a claim, and that was
That's
suffice.
a great.
I always ask when realtors call me, hey, I got some more, I say, hey, are you representing the buyer or the seller? Because we have to approach it, differently.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, if it's a buyer, I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I wanna keep let's,
Yeah.
you're not gonna die. It's the buyer, it's okay.
I understand, because I've seen both sides. So as some buyers will buy a house and it was a little bit, they didn't have enough information up front, and then when they dove into it, it cost a pretty penny. So I feel getting all the proper information up front will help people feel confidence in making the proper decisions. Like I said, you don't always need me up front. The most valuable thing is verifying before you put materials back.
And I will ask the agent, do you want me to give you best case scenario or worst case scenario? Like how detailed you want me to be? Like what works for your client?
Yeah.
You don't wanna scare them away either.
Do you want to show them your remediation, and then we can go over the
I
Q and
sent
A?
to the email.
Oh.
Maybe you can help
As
us.
soon as they say the mold word,
Oh,
everybody
Everybody
freaks.
freaks. That's another. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, so that's the estimate, guys, that we put together. Very basic information in the front page. And then we try to do a little, just a simple opening statement of the areas that we're gonna be working. And then we like to itemize everything so your customer knows,
This is the difference between-
what are you doing, room, but I don't want to, there's more in the bathroom, in the 2 bedrooms, yeah, $2,500. No, we like to, break everything, room by room or category by category, so they know exactly the steps that we're taking.
So
And
stop
then,
here real quick. So this was prepared based off my report initially, and he hadn't walked the site. So he prepared it based
Oh,
off
yeah.
my report to do remediation of all the areas that called out. And then after talking with the buyer, and he came and walked the site, and they agreed on the scope of work.
So this was worst case scenario. As you can see, it was almost $7,000. But once I saw it, I think that and that we're gonna do it. We'll just do it for 2,500.
And they were comfortable with cleaning.
That's true. And I gave him a good deal.
That's because you weren't remediating. So even
True. That is
so
true,
because remediation is the best way to approach mold. That's, you get to the root, you know what caused the mold to grow. So there's the leak has been fixed, the roof repair has been done, whatever caused the moisture intrusion. So remediation is the best industry standard. You're getting to the root. But yes, there's little bits of mold. We don't have regulations that give us the amount to work with. So understanding treatment versus remediation.
Because the mold in one of the bathrooms and on the north side of the house was non-toxic. So we didn't have to set up containment and equipment. We just simply, you had your guy with his respirator, PPE always, no matter what. And then he was just HEPA vacuuming and wiping, the windows and, keep everything controlled. And you vacuuming and wiping, and that was it.
And for the
Something very
visual,
simple.
people, think of mold like a little dandelion. So the little flower that kids like to blow the seeds, same concept, but mold has spores, but it has roots. So whatever the roots are embedded in, that's how you properly remediate or treat that material. But if it's the toxigenic, then that's where you want to control the environment, set up the containment so no cross-contamination happens. Because that one spore lands on a surface, and then if the environment supports it, then it will start producing more spores. And in that process, if you're familiar with mycotoxins, that's the chemical compound of mold when it's in the growing form.
And also, if you don't do remediation correctly and you don't contain properly, or accidentally your containment falls down, and you don't pay attention, And if the AC intake is close to your work area, those spores can get into the HVAC system, and now you're spreading it everywhere.
And somebody that is aware of how that works, it
My
can
friend the
become a
plumbers, they
nightmare.
used to do that. My friend the plumbers, they come in and start cutting everywhere. Like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Now I have mold in the bathroom. I have it everywhere. Yeah,
so,
I'm dealing with jobs like that.
or we can do testing and then determine the extent of the contamination airborne.
Any questions?
Is any of it covered by insurance?
So when it comes to coverage, you have to have the limits. So typically, if you do have mold coverage, it's gonna be in a specific term like fungi. What are some other words that they have? Microbial growth, biological. And in the state of California, it's typically common to cap out at either $5,000 or $10,000 worth of limits for mold
Usually five.
But you have to have a special.
coverage.
Most of the time, you answer an addendum. A lot of times.
They don't, and like for what I've been hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're looking for insurance, they don't even offer it. And it's hard to even find it now. And so it's very important to document the water intrusion because mold is a consequential damage. So what damage can be in from what was caused by the moisture? Try to separate.
But I know homeowners insurance doesn't cover slow, consistent leaks.
Going-
They want,
Correct.
they want like something happened, a pipe broke, then they cover it. But
Then
if it's
advise-
slow, they don't want to cover it.
My advice when you had to file a claim first, if there is mold, then most likely there was a leak. So you first, when you call me, hey Jesus, I think I have a mold issue in these, tenants. My property owner, has a tenant, there's mold. Okay. I know there's mold, but I know there's limits. Hey, where do you think the leak is? Oh, I think it's the faucet. Okay. So I try to justify the claim as water damage first, because I'm gonna have a limit of mold. And I'm gonna tell the adjuster, hey, I'm removing the bathroom, the shower because of water damage. I'm removing the floors because of water damage. I'm removing the walls because of water damage.
You don't-
Because
Sometimes
of
it works.
water.
You don't always want me on the scene. You don't always,
And
yeah,
I'm
so,
sure Cameron had plenty of experience with that because he deals with a lot
So
of.
we want these guys, not you.
yeah, so I do the verification, but if there is and you have tenant situation, I highly recommend getting a verification because if it's not, it's hearsay. So if you don't have any verification, then nobody has a document of what the current environmental conditions were before you put all the materials back. So who's certifying that the mold is gone?
When you have a very difficult tenant, I always call clerk first because I wanna have precise information before I do. I wanna have information
Data.
before I do the job, during the job, and after. When the tenant is like, "Oh my God, I'm dying," or
Mhm.
you have those things.
So like the last Friday with that particular tenant, they weren't gonna utilize my services. I was gonna do the verification, but because of the sensitivity of it, she wanted to move forward with getting pre-data just so that the current environment could be documented in that moment of time and then continue to move forward, but they wouldn't allow us entry.
If there is insurance, though, it's always worth trying to file a claim.
Yes.
And you want to make sure that the people you hire are working for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the people have experience with.
And let me tell
Fair
you
enough.
why. We have really good relationships with contractors, plumbers, electricians, of course, Crystal, all of these people that has our back. And we usually are the first ones on site. And I'm already typed to the customer I have everything lined up. So I need someone to come and be on the same page as me, not somebody else giving some other ideas. But Jesus said, you know what? So a lot of times you mentioned that when something's going on for a while, right? Like how can you actually tell if it's 1 week or 2 months? Regardless, right, Mr. Adjuster, I want to know if there's coverage for water damage. So I call my own leak detection. I usually call Danny. Danny, I have a leak and I think it's coming from the sink. And I want you to come over here and take a look. And I want you to tell me if it's the sink. I don't need you to tell me that it's been going for a while. No, because if
Yeah.
insurance is not asking me, I'm not going to tell them.
Right.
You know?
It's besides the point.
Yeah,
And in
I
order
have
to
water
actually,
damage. This is the source,
It's
Mr.
very
Adjuster.
costly.
Are you gonna cover the claim because of water damage? Oh, yes, there's coverage for water damage. Perfect. I'll start tomorrow. Oh, by the way, there's a little bit of mold. Is there coverage? Yeah, but up to 5,000. Don't worry, it's gonna be under that.
that's,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Versus if I call the adjuster, Mr. Adjuster, I think I have a mold problem in the kitchen. Well, there's only $5,000.
You kind of want to get your ducks in the row before you call the insurance, because sometimes your deductible, it may be your deductible is 1,000 or 5,000. The repairs may be way under that. So it wasn't even worth
Calling.
alerting your insurance
That's true.
in that case. So feel free to pick my brain any day. I only charge if I go there. So if there's a situation that anybody wants to think, if they want to turn it into the insurance, we'll pong it over between all of us and see if it's worth it for that
I
client.
don't charge for coming and taking a look at the site either. But if you need me to put estimates together and do more, but I can, like I said, you have a client is pointed out, or I think there's a problem here, mold, water, whatever. You call me, you can meet me there. We can run the moisture meters really quick, and at least we have an idea like where do we go from there.
Right.
It's something really small, something really big. Do we get insurance? Like, what do we do?
What
The way-
areas do you cover?
Modesto to Bakersfield. Me.
So you'll go
I'm state of
straight up from-
California and I have other
Yeah,
states
2
that I
hours from
serve it.
Fresno,
Yeah.
or 2 hours south from Fresno. I'm okay.
I will do a lot of talking before I have to
You go
go
more than
out
I don't
to
wanna
the- That's why I charge if I have to go anywhere, because basically I'm identifying what's happening in the environmental conditions and then creating an initial report that either someone like them can create a estimate off of. Then the conversation happens, well, what type of repairs are you doing, Mr. Contractor? And then that's when they come out
You had a
there.
question, right?
I did. Is mildew just a non-toxic type of mold, or is it something?
Crystal.
Mildew is more of a slimy mold, is what I would like to say to kind of give perspective. So mildew is a term that's used more of what we see in showers or around sinks and those type of things.
So that would normally need treatment, not remediation.
Yes.
Normal.
Normally, if we're just identifying that red or discoloration on the grout, then that's typically a surface growth. There's not a hidden leak that comes down to housekeeping. So one would have to constantly scrub the surfaces in order to prevent that from growing. Same thing around window seals. But identifying if it's toxic, you would have to physically test that surface to determine if it's a toxic
I have one more.
species.
When you test, well, actually 2 more, when you test a whole house, will it detect what would be behind the wall? For example, I had a bedroom,
Mhm.
moisture when the tenant was moving out had been developing under the bed, so they never saw it. But what had happened was we determined later that when they built the house, they put a screw through a pipe. So it had been like a 10-year leak, just tiny little drop, drop, drop. So if there would have been a mold test in that house or in that room with that wall sealed prior to the water escaping down under the baseboard and
That's
under
a
the
water
carpet,
damage
would
first
it have
and
caught it behind a sealed wall?
Without knowing all the other conditions in that area, it's a yes and no. So sometimes it can, sometimes it doesn't. So somebody in my position, if I was to go, let's say your tenant said that they feel sick in this room, okay? We don't know anything but that. So identifying the environmental conditions that support mold would be first. So has there been any water intrusion? Is there any current moisture? Is there any surface growth on any of the surfaces? If there was a water intrusion that we knew about in that area, we can pull up the carpet, look at the tack strip. Sometimes that will help to determine if there's a hidden reservoir
Yeah,
in
and
any of
that's
these
what they did.
areas.
Put out first, and then they could see that it was coming from this area in the baseboard, and then they cut up and then they found that.
So the air testing, to give you understanding of how that works, is a snapshot in time. Okay, so someone like myself has to do an outside baseline because mold is something that's naturally occurring. So having a baseline done, that's the normal mold levels in that moment of time. Okay, we take a sample in that room, that area. If there's certain species that indicate a long-term leak or those type of things, they could be brought up in that air test. And if I see those, Stachybotrys, Chattotarium, that tells me that there may be a reservoir hiding that we can't see on the surface. And then knowing where the water intrusions have been, that's where you investigate first. So going to that corner, you could see a little damage. The baseboard might be popping from it's on along a perimeter wall. Those are indicators that there may have been some, there've been some moisture intrusion. So could there be a reservoir hiding in the wall? Yes, maybe that's why we saw a spore or two of this type. So that's why I like to have people understand it's the start of an investigation. In order for someone to do because you could tear down a whole house looking for mold. So really an comprehensive indoor air quality assessment, which is going to cost thousands of dollars, would be what needs to be done in order to understand fully what's happening in the property in regards to mold. So what are the levels, what are the types, and there's a number of different testing methods one would do to make that comprehensive assessment. So if you're not doing a full comprehensive assessment of the property, taking in all the plumbing, the engineering, the HVAC systems, the history of the property, repairs, all those things, then it's the start of the investigation. It's the start.
One last quick question. I have never heard this term air scrubber. What the heck is an air scrubber?
That's a more, it's an air purifier, but it's a more of a, yes, yeah. So it's more industrial. It's more industrial. So
That scrubber, we can charge more. I'm just kidding. It just cleans the air.
Yeah, so it's just scrubbing the air. So again, because mold growth and mold particulates, two separate conversations, both considered contamination.
And going back to mildew,
yes,
if I can give you guys an advice when referring to mold, don't call it mold, just call it microbial growth.
Organic growth, discoloration.
Never use mold.
Because sometimes I will go, yeah. So I'll go out there and it's like this little dark area on the wall, and everyone has different comfort levels. Is why I like to explain it. Nothing's coming off, right? Like nothing's coming off my finger. Yes. And so, but I do the test. It doesn't have any indicators of actual mold growth. And so therefore, what is it? Somebody wants to know what is it at that point because it was already called out as mold.
Dirt.
Yeah. You see
That's what it is.
That's what, yeah. So
I think I must have almost died as a child because our house was old. It was built in the 60s, no overhead fans. We'd go in and take a shower. You'd have to open the window. And I can remember the mildew that would grow and my mom would go in there with bleach. So I was either going to get killed with mildew or bleach. The two.
Yeah.
She'd be bleaching everything.
yeah. I am.
Does anybody online have any questions? Ask them, Gunnar, if they need to unmute and ask if they have any questions.
It's almost 12.
Oh, I got a question.
Oh, we have a question.
This is
All
JP.
ears.
What if you got an underground water flume that's creating moisture to come up through a foundation of a house?
Those are fun.
Those are.
It's like tear the house down,
That's not good.
put
There's
it
a
on
lot of different-
stilts.
Yeah, there's a lot of different variables. Is it a newer build?
Older.
An older build?
Yeah,
There's-
we don't usually have the water table rising in California, so it's not really that common. But
Right. So I mean, I've seen where they've sealed the foundation. Knowing what materials you're putting on a foundation that has higher moisture levels will be important to prevent mold from growing. So you want materials that can breathe. So going back to like tile, wood floors, if you get those vinyl floor tanks or vinyl floor planks, you'll probably find some colonies over time.
I know of
yeah.
a property.
This is first.
Only if you need me to document the environmental conditions and have a snapshot in time, depending on how you're gonna move forward, that's where I come into play because I'm going to document what the current environmental conditions are and tell you the type and per industry standards. If you don't need that documentation, then having a remediation company, Jesus or Cameron, come out and remediating it will be just as sufficient. Verifying that the mold is remediated is where the value of my type of service can come into play, so that when, if you decide to sell your home, you can disclose that you had this situation, this repair was done, and here's the verification of that process.
And this like estimate, is that your cost included too on that for you to verify?
That's for the.
No.
That's just remediation.
Yeah, so depending, I will say depending, if I'm initially, I always give costs. I don't charge what I normally charge if I go out, if I'm involved from the beginning to the end. So it just all depends on how many containments I need to clear. That's where the costs come in, but a normal verification, one containment working in the beginning is $450.
Oh, okay.
So this particular initial, they chose the standard mold inspection package that was $875.
So the 450 would give you a clearance test.
Yes, if I was there initially. If I wasn't there initially, it typically bumps up $550 to $625 depending on the containment size.
So homes, what Cindy was talking about, where homes sealed to. I mean, don't they do that with new construction? I mean, how do we know if something is?
There's a,
Extent.
yeah,
Extent.
there's a lot of different variables. Knowing all your mechanics on the property are gonna be important. Understanding, the age of the HVAC, what the size of it, what it's outputting.
Our AC thing shows us how much humidity is in the house. My husband like really different.
Okay, so yeah, and humidity is going to, knowing this humidity of a home is going to prevent seeing mold around window seals, prevent colonies underneath those vinyl floor planks, those type of variables. Because everything has some type of moisture. We just don't want an extreme abundance of a moisture without it being properly ventilated.
There's gonna be moisture, there's gonna be mold.
So like even if we were to take a moisture meter, well, this isn't drywall, but drywall is gonna have a certain percentage, 8 to,
6 to 12.
yeah.
So with the vinyl plank, that when people mop them and the moisture starts going in between that.
Mhm. Because once the moisture's,
Water on your vinyl floor.
once the
that's-
moisture is trapped under there, how are you getting it out? So you could have a dehumidifier. So are we gonna put, the consumer's gonna have a dehumidifier in every room that has these flooring
That
in order
might be a
to,
potential problem since that was the thing, right? Everybody was doing these vinyl plank.
and they're really pretty. But what nobody's talking about is what's happening when the moisture rises.
Because tile and grout won't allow that, right? Because grout
It
is like the
breathes.
cement.
It's porous.
Yeah.
It's a porous material, so
And all flooring companies, yes, they're selling you the vinyl plank because it's waterproof, but they don't really take the time to explain to you how to clean it properly. You can't just go happy with a mop everywhere,
well, think of the
because
old
water can get underneath.
vinyl. They used to put the plastic vapor barrier down and then put it. And again, that was them acknowledging moisture does rise, but what's happening, that even created a more contained environment. So I'd imagine worse colonies under those type of situations. But the vinyl floor planks is where they
Here
come
in the
together.
valley, all of the concrete foundations is all properties, they have a high level of moisture everywhere.
I have some clients that are not even putting flooring, they're staining their concrete now. Just so that they see it, it makes them
Yeah.
comfort level. They've done some cool designs, I've seen that.
It can be beautiful.
Yeah, it can be beautiful. It can be beautiful. Then you don't have to worry about ever replacing carpet, those type of things. More rugs is what somebody would do.
I just wanted to share with everybody, I did have one incident with mold in a purchase, and it was actually a house that we were buying for my son. I would say always be aware of plumbing companies that have in-house remediation portions. There was a leak and it was not mold. Plumbing company that went out had a mold remediation thing and
Yeah.
they called it mold. And, you know, I had to get second opinions and third opinions and a second freaking plumber out there.
Yeah.
and
Boy.
all this stuff. And we ended up settling with the title company because the seller had First American and my son was having First American. And so we worked it all out, but it was a huge, and I was like, she said, I promise you, Ileana, we will never use that vendor again. I was like, they did that just to try to throw $5,000
Yeah.
to their remediation side because was in their best interest.
It's a conflict of interest.
Yes,
Conflict of interest.
that's where someone like myself that only does inspections, testing, consulting, I have no financial interest on the remediation. I fail them sometimes.
Hey,
It's not good enough to pass, so I
just tell me.
have to make that
I'll
call.
send the guys back tomorrow.
Yes,
Okay?
or Jesus, why is there insulation in this containment? I'm not even gonna take samples today. We're all humans,
But we
yes.
do the right thing.
Yes, that's what counts. But yes, you definitely want somebody that's not partaking. Yes, that's
Like
remediation. To give you
90%.
yeah.
Great.
I've
got your
So,
number
so,
saved.
so speaking about plumbing, there was home developers 35, 40 years ago that were putting copper pipe under the foundations of the house and they would leak because of the sand that they buried them in.
Corrosion.
Yeah. And then they end up having to replumb the whole house with PEX piping.
Make sure you have pest control scheduled. You got the Plex.
Oh, yeah.
Because the rodents love to tap into that for their water source.
Really?
Yes.
So the fact
Yes.
that the copper, when it was going through the concrete, you didn't know it until it started coming
Yeah,
up.
because-
Correct.
And it was weird
Galvanized
because
steel.
it would come up one place, but that wasn't necessarily where, I mean, it was where water finds the easiest, least point of
Right.
resistance, right?
Yeah.
Galvanized, the hot water galvanized, it's usually the one that we come from like mitigation, water mitigation. So we did a lot of water mitigation, we deal with, leaks, we deal with plumbers, we deal with insurance. So
Because that was a nightmare when, I mean, they were busting through foundations trying to just find the leak, and then they would usually just cap it off and run it overhead.
just
Yeah.
bypass it.
Yeah, that's
So
the
we
thing,
tell the
sometimes
customers
they-
bypass it.
Sometimes they can find it and then they,
But then it
Expose
popped
it,
up
fix the
again,
damage,
someplace
fix,
else.
yeah.
They would find one spot, then.
I
it
tell the
popped up
client
again.
when he's going through insurance, I said, take the money from the insurance and just run it. Cause right now we're gonna fix the leak here on your kitchen. We're gonna open up your floors and then 10 feet away in 6 months, 4 months, you're gonna call me
Gonna happen
to
again.
address the water damage. So just take the money from the insurance that they're giving you to fix this area. Yeah, you have to put a little bit out of pocket and then just run the line. If you can repipe the house, then do it. Anything over 30 years,
Yeah,
40
you,
years, it's done. The plumbing
you
is.
take into that consideration.
but for whatever reason, they know there's water. in Those
They-
lines.
Yeah.
Like, so they used to do them clear.
Mhm.
It's one of the way, I think they were clear because they thought, oh, it's clear, they don't know it's water, something like that. They story right between going to
Yeah.
red and blue.
Yeah.
But
They used to
know
all be
there's water
clear,
no matter
yeah.
what.
So,
Anything else?
any other
Anyone else have any
questions?
questions? I think you answered all the questions.
Okay.
Very,
Very-
You guys have info, if you guys ever need anything, feel free to give us a call.
Great information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Sir, did you want to share anything?
No, I don't think so.
All right, guys,